In our line of work, we never, ever, ever prove that one thing causes another. Never. Why? Because we are studying the social world, the world of people and groups and institutions. And people and groups and institutions operate in a complex world in which many factors go into decisions and responses. Let's think about it. After you finish this module, how much time are you going to spend watching TV? What would cause you to watch TV for some number of minutes instead of some other number of minutes, or at all? I can think of a number of factors that will have a causal effect on the number of minutes I watch TV this evening. Do I have anything better to do? How much do I want to watch any of the shows that are on? Does another member of my household want to watch TV tonight? How tired am I? And so on. Instead of proving that one thing causes another, we present evidence to support a claim that one thing causes another. And we acknowledge that there are almost certainly many other factors at work, some of which we can identify and measure, some of which we can't. We say that two variables are related, or associated or correlated, if specific values of one variable coincide with specific values of another variable. That is, the two variables move together in a regular pattern. The relationship is causal if the values of one variable lead instrumentally to the values of the other variable. You've heard the axiom, correlation is not causation. This means that we can observe a pattern between two phenomena, but it does not mean that one phenomenon is materially influencing the other. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to take this statement a step further. It is true that correlation is not causation, but correlation is prerequisite to causation. We contemplate 4 criteria of causality. These are the ways that we build a case in support of causality. First is empirical association. Empirical association is when we can establish the existence of a relationship through empirical study. Either there is or there is not a significant relationship. We run a bivariate regression and check for a significant association between the independent variable and the dependent variable. Usually this is a deal killer if you don't have empirical association. We do have it out though, and we will look at it at the same time that we check for non-spuriousness. Let's do a quick check to make sure you remember how to read the results of analysis to see if we have bivariate association or not. Second is theory. Theory is the process that creates the connection between the independent variable and the dependent variable. It explains how and why the relationship occurs. I will say this criterion is usually the hardest for students to grasp. Don't worry, we will do what we can with it. In most cases, we build on existing theory rather than coming up with our own theory. We do this because it helps us to understand how the world works. A bit more formally, our research helps us to gather evidence that supports or refutes the theory, or helps us to understand the circumstances when the theory applies. We're going to keep it simple. We are going to stick with common sense cause and effect. Here is an example. A 2000 study in the Journal of Aesthetic Education looked for a causal link between the study of arts and academic achievement in elementary and secondary school. How might that work? Studies dating back to 1989 have revealed that students involved in music programs show improved reading abilities and higher math and science scores. Because participation in music generates neural connections, it benefits those brain functions that aid the abstract reason that math and science require. The theoretical link is hard to establish and usually easily refutable. A lot of researchers won't even go there because it opens the door to criticism. Fine, so be it. All I'm saying is that I challenge you to think about how one phenomenon might influence another. Third is temporal priority of the independent variable. This means that variation in the independent variable comes before variation in the dependent variable. Temporal priority is often ambiguous, so you have to make the case for it. There are a lot of ways we can do that. One way to detect temporal priority is when some condition or characteristic is in place before the dependent variable occurs. For example, an individual would have graduated high school on time or not before having a job at age 25. The average home price in a neighborhood would be in place before an individual house is sold at some price. At any point in time, the health of the economy is already in place. It is the context in which people choose to invest, look for a new job, move, buy a new car, whatever. Another way to argue for temporal priority is inherent characteristics. Inherent characteristics nearly always have temporal priority. These could include sex, race, family characteristics, and so on. A third way, sometimes you can use an independent variable that is observed at some point in time before the dependent variable. For instance, the dollar value of money spent on transportation in the second half of the year, or a treatment that occurs before you observe the effect or the outcome. Participate in a job training program in 2011 and have some level of employment in 2012. I have a few questions set up for you to help make sure that you get it. The fourth criterion of causality is non-spuriousness. This is when a relationship between two variables is not due to variation in a third, extraneous variable. An extraneous variable is any variable other than the independent variable that might influence the dependent variable. It can interfere with the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable by simultaneously affecting both variables, or it can influence the dependent variable directly. In either case, we say that the relationship between the independent and dependent variables is spurious or partially spurious. How do we figure out if we have an extraneous variable? This gets technical, so hold on. Look at the coefficient on the independent variable in the bivariate regression and compare it to the coefficient on the independent variable in the multivariate regression. If the coefficient changes, then we say that the relationship is spurious and we have one or more extraneous variables. Even if the coefficient does not change, we acknowledge that there are certainly other factors that have an influence on the dependent variable. One last check to make sure you are on track.